Let me tell you about two people. Same age, same city, same income. One of them wakes up every morning with this quiet weight on their chest. Not quite panic, not quite pain, just dread. They go through their whole day carrying it. At lunch, their friends want to split the bill and they do the math in their head 3 times before agreeing. At night, they scroll through their phone not because they're bored, but because it's the only way to stop thinking. The other person? They're not rich, they don't drive a better car, they don't live in a bigger apartment, but there's something different about them. The way they walk into a room, the way they talk to their boss, the way they make decisions like someone who has options, even when nothing in their life looks that different from yours. Same city, same job, same paycheck. So what is the difference? It's not confidence, it's not discipline, it's not some morning routine they found on the internet. It is one number, sitting in a bank account, and that number is $10,000. Now before you roll your eyes and think this is going to be some generic save your money speech, stop, because what I'm about to tell you has nothing to do with budgeting. It has everything to do with your brain, and what happens to it the moment that number appears. Think about what life looks like before that number. You wake up, you check your account. Maybe there's $400 in there, maybe $900. Maybe you don't even check because you're afraid of what you'll see. You get an unexpected bill and your stomach drops. Your car makes a weird noise and your first thought isn't, I'll get that fixed. Your first thought is, how bad is it? Can it wait? What do I have to cancel this month? That feeling, that low-grade constant anxiety about money, psychologists actually have a name for it. They call it scarcity mindset. And here's the thing about scarcity mindset that nobody tells you. It doesn't just affect how you spend money, it affects how you think. There's a landmark study done by researchers at Princeton and Harvard, and what they found was shocking. When people are financially stressed, their cognitive function drops, not slightly, significantly. The mental bandwidth that should be going toward creativity, problem-solving, planning, ambition, it gets consumed. Eaten alive by financial worry. In other words, being broke doesn't just empty your wallet. It partially empties your mind. And you've probably felt this, that fog, that inability to think long-term when short-term survival feels uncertain. That's not a character flaw. That's your brain under pressure. So why $10,000? Why not $5,000? Why not $50,000? Here's what's fascinating. $10,000 is the first number that psychologically does something that smaller amounts simply cannot. It creates what behavioral economists call a buffer. But not just a financial buffer, a mental one. When you have $400 saved, you're one emergency away from zero. When you have $2,000 saved, you're still one bad month away from crisis. But when you have $10,000 sitting there, something in your nervous system relaxes. Not because $10,000 is a fortune, it's not, but because for the first time there is distance between you and your worst-case scenario. You stop thinking like someone who is surviving, and you start thinking like someone who might actually be able to choose. Now here's where it gets really interesting, because the most powerful thing that happens at $10,000 isn't external, it's internal. See, most people think money changes your circumstances, and it does. Slightly, but what it really changes is your identity. There's a psychological principle called self-perception theory. The basic idea is this: we don't just act based on who we believe we are, we come to believe we are whoever we act like. When you reach $10,000, something quiet but enormous happens inside you. You stop identifying as someone who is bad with money. You stop seeing yourself as someone who will always be living paycheck to paycheck. Because the evidence in front of you, your own bank account, tells a different story. You did something hard, you delayed gratification, you made choices others didn't make, and now you are someone who has $10,000. That sentence might sound simple. It is not. Because your brain will start making decisions through that new lens. You'll think twice before an impulse purchase. Not because of discipline, but because people like you don't do that. You'll start saying no to things that would have tempted you before. Not out of deprivation, out of identity. That is a completely different mechanism than willpower. And it is far more powerful. But there's another shift that happens, and this one might be the most underrated of all. Before $10,000, opportunity is almost invisible to you. Not because opportunity isn't there, because you can't afford to see it. Think about it. Someone tells you about a small business idea, That requires $3,000 up front. When you have $600 in your account, what do you hear? You hear a fantasy, something for other people, something for later, someday, never. You don't even let your brain explore it seriously, because your brain knows on some level that it doesn't matter how good the idea is, the math doesn't work, so why torture yourself? But when you have $10,000, that same conversation lands completely differently. Your brain doesn't shut it down immediately, it calculates. Okay, $3,000, that's 30% of what I have. I'd still have $7,000 left. What's the upside? You start running the numbers, you start asking questions, you start taking it seriously. This is what people mean when they say it takes money to make money. And it's not just about capital, it's about cognitive access to opportunity. The first $10,000 doesn't just give you options, it gives you the ability to see options. Now here's something that sounds completely backwards. When you have more money, you actually become more willing to take risks, not reckless risks, calculated ones. And this is the paradox that keeps so many people trapped. People with nothing tell themselves, once I have money, I'll play it safe, I'll protect it. People who actually build wealth discover the opposite. When you have zero, you're paralyzed. Every decision feels like it could ruin you, because honestly, it could. So you stay still, you take the safe job. You stick with the comfortable bad situation, not because you're cowardly, because the stakes are too high to risk being wrong. But with $10,000 behind you, the math changes. If you try something and it doesn't work, you still exist, you still have a foundation, you haven't fallen all the way to zero. And that knowledge, that there is a floor beneath you, is what finally allows you to leap. The first $10,000 isn't just savings, it's psychological permission to take the kind of risks that actually change your life. There's a story that almost nobody tells about people who become wealthy. It's not about the investment that paid off. It's not about the business that blew up. It's about what happened right before those things. Almost every person who builds real financial freedom will tell you, there was a moment of stillness, a moment where they had just enough to breathe, just enough to think, just enough to be patient, just enough to wait for the right opportunity instead of grabbing desperately at the wrong one. That stillness is where strategy is born. Before $10,000, most financial decisions are made from desperation.
You take the job that pays you now, even if it kills your future. You sell things cheap because you need cash today. You make the deal that feels wrong because you don't have the luxury of walking away. But with $10,000, you can walk away. And the ability to walk away from a bad deal might be one of the most valuable financial skills in existence. It is a skill that only becomes available to you when you have something behind you. Let's talk about something that doesn't get said enough. Confidence. Real confidence. Not the performed kind. When most people talk about building confidence, they talk about mindset, affirmations, believing in yourself, visualization, and those things have their place. But there is a kind of confidence that doesn't come from what you tell yourself. It comes from what you've proven to yourself. And reaching $10,000 is proof. It proves you can set a goal. It proves you can stick to it when it's boring and painful and nobody's cheering for you. It proves you can delay gratification in a world that is engineered, literally engineered, to make you spend. Every app on your phone, every ad you see, every one-click checkout. These are billion-dollar systems designed to transfer money out of your hands. And you beat them. That's not nothing. That's actually enormous. And that confidence, the kind that comes from a track record, it compounds. Because when you trust yourself with $10,000, you start trusting yourself with decisions worth more than money. Career decisions, relationship decisions, life decisions. You start realizing that you have the ability to commit to something hard and follow through. And once you know that about yourself, everything changes. Here's something uncomfortable, and I want you to really sit with this. There is an invisible line in this country. It doesn't get talked about in schools. It's not in any textbook. But almost everyone who has crossed it knows it exists. It's the line between people who have any cushion at all and people who have nothing. On one side of that line, life is a series of crises. An unexpected expense isn't an inconvenience. It's a catastrophe. A layoff isn't scary. It's devastating. Every financial decision is made under duress. Every risk is potentially fatal to the household. On the other side of that line, life is still hard. Don't misunderstand me. But the nature of the hardness is different. The problems become puzzles instead of threats. And the difference in how your brain handles a puzzle versus a threat is the difference between strategy and survival. Most wealth advice is written by people who are already on the other side of that line. And so they talk about investing and compound interest and asset allocation. And all of that matters. Eventually. But they skip the first step. Cross the line. Get to the other side. Build $10,000. Because until you do, the advanced strategies are almost irrelevant. You can't play chess when you're worried about where you're sleeping tonight. Now I want to be honest with you about something. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. Because it isn't. Not in a world where rent is crushing, groceries are expensive, and your salary was built for someone living in 2015. It's genuinely hard. But here's what I will tell you. The path to $10,000 isn't a secret. It's not a hack. It's not a specific investment. It's not a side hustle algorithm someone is selling. It is a decision. A decision made over and over again, daily, in small moments that feel completely insignificant when you're in them. It is choosing one thing over another 100 times until the account says a number that changes the way you see yourself. And the way it tends to happen, for real people, not finance influencers, is through a combination of earning more, spending less, and keeping the difference somewhere you won't touch. Not complicated. Brutally simple. But simplicity and ease are not the same thing. The people who make it to $10,000 are not smarter than you. They are not luckier than you. They just refuse to let the short-term win over the long-term one more time than they absolutely had to. So let's come back to where we started. That moment. That shift. There's a version of you that exists on the other side of $10,000. And they think differently than you do right now. They see opportunities you can't currently see. They make decisions from a place of calm that you don't currently have access to. They have walked away from bad situations you're currently tolerating. They are not a different person. They are you, but with the psychological experience of having done something hard, of having built something from nothing, of having proven, with evidence, that they can. $10,000 is not retirement. It's not financial freedom. It's not the end of the journey. It is the moment the journey actually begins. Because before it, you are reacting to life. After it, you start designing it. And here's the last thing I'll leave you with. The most dangerous lie about wealth isn't that it's impossible. The most dangerous lie is that it's for other people. People with better starts, better opportunities, better zip codes. But the research, the psychology, and the lived experience of thousands of people who've built wealth from nothing tells a different story. They all started somewhere. Most of them started scared. Most of them started behind. And most of them crossed that invisible line not with a windfall or a miracle, but with a decision. Made once, then again, until one day, they checked their account. And something shifted. You already know what you need to do. You've probably always known. The question was never whether it was possible. The question was whether you would decide, today, that you are the kind of person who does it.